2025 is a 9-year. That means that each digit of 2025, 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 5 equals 9. Numerologically, that means something very specific, and that translates into tarot. So we're going to talk about the major arcana card and each of the suits and what those nines mean. Also, I'm going to share with you a super simple equation for you to figure out your card of the year so you know what kind of energy and what kind of information and what kind of anchor to focus your attention on in the year of 2025. In the major arcana, the ninth card is the Hermit. The Hermit is about taking time inside of yourself, trying to cut out all that external outside noise to really listen to your own intuition and to your own body. This might look like, and sometimes we hear the name the Hermit and we think of it as like a bad card, as someone who may be isolating, but really it is this like cultivating internal wisdom. In yoga, it brings about the idea of pratyahara, which is a withdrawal of the senses or a withdrawal of distraction. And that is one of the best ways to really strengthen our yoga, is by kind of cutting out all the excess noise. 9 energy, 10 is the completion of a cycle. 9 energy is the almost last part of that cycle. It's almost a time, like if you ever see in movies before the final battle scene, the hero kind of goes in within itself. There's kind of this like internal moment before they do their final last push towards the end. And that is this Hermit energy. Now it's really interesting astrologically. Almost all of the outer planets, so all the generational planets, are switching signs this year. So we have Uranus, we have Neptune, we have Saturn, all changing. Oh, and Jupiter are all changing signs. Now, they're all going to change signs, and then except for Jupiter, is not going to retrograde back into the old sign, but the Neptune, Saturn, and Uranus are all going to change signs and then retrograde back into the signs they're in right now. And then they'll go into their new sign for the next however many years, starting in 2026. So it is almost this idea of like, we're going to taste the new cycle. We're going to go back within ourselves. Okay, is there something that we need to recalibrate? Is there something that we need to shift, something that we need to fix in order for us to move forward? And that really is this Hermit energy. We're going to have to learn to trust ourselves this year. That is the end of that. We are going to have to learn to trust ourselves, and we're going to have to learn to listen to our intuition. Now, each of the suits have their own 9. So the 9 of feet, or 9 of pentacles, if you're familiar with the Rider-Waite-Smith, is a time for gratitude. It's like, wow, we have worked so hard to get to where we are. And you can see that you're almost to the end of the road, almost to the end of the cycle. And it's time to really appreciate how far that you've come. 9 of hips, or 9 of cups, is this opportunity to really celebrate. Again, it's like this kind of reminder, like you're kind of towards the end of a cycle, and to really appreciate how far you've come. 9 of feet is more gratitude. 9 of hips is more about celebration. 9 of hands, or 9 of wands, is a time of healing. It's like you have been through the battle. We have taken our time to really explore something, and we might be licking our wounds a little bit, right? So it's like we're taking time, we're like appreciating how far we've come. We're going within before we do our final last stint. And then we finally have the 9 of eyes, or 9 of swords, which is about dreams and anxieties. It's about, we're kind of going in before we decide to shift our focus or shift our attention away from whatever it is that is kind of holding us back or bogging us down in these certain ways. So now, in order for you to find out what your card of the year, this is a super simple equation. So you're going to add up each digit of your birth month plus each digit of your birthday plus each digit of 2025, which we now know is 9. So for example, my birthday is October 12th. So I'm going to add up 1 plus 0 plus 1 plus 2 plus 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 5. So if I add up all those digits together, I get 13. And so I actually get 2 cards. The 13th card is death, And then I will add up each digit of 13. 1 plus 3 equals 4, which is the Emperor. Now, if you get 22 or above, keep adding your digits together until you get 21 or below. There are 22 major arcana cards, but one of those major arcana cards is numbered 0. That is the Fool. So we're not going to worry about that one. We're going to look at 1 through 21. Sometimes you can get multiple cards, sometimes you get 2, sometimes you can get up to 3 cards for your cards of the year. And we're going to talk about how all of those are connected. So stay tuned. So if you got 19, 10, or 1, we're going to talk about what your cards of the year are. So if you got 19, you actually get 3 cards. The first one is the Sun. The Sun is a reminder to find joy and pleasure in your life, and not necessarily in the overt big ways. Don't think of a roller coaster, think of a bike ride. Think about ways that are sustainable joy, ways that you find a little bit of beauty and a little bit of sweetness in your life. Maybe it is the way that the sun plays, in your house when you are working or spending time with your family. Maybe it's your favorite cup of coffee or tea. Maybe it's the way that the person that you love smells, like all these really sweet little ways to incorporate that more into our lives. If you got 19, that means that you also got 10. So 10 is the Wheel of Fortune. The Wheel of Fortune is a reminder to zoom out and see the big picture around something. So maybe within this illustration, we have both poppies, which are a poisonous plant, and we also have jade, which is a plant that represents good luck. So if you only notice the one tiny piece, like you're only focusing on the good thing, then you're going to miss kind of the big picture. If you're only focusing on what isn't working, again, you're going to miss the big picture. And sometimes the things that we think that we want don't really lead us to where we want to go. And sometimes the things that we think we don't want are exactly what we need. So if you got 10, that means you also got 1, because 1 plus 0 equals 1. And that is the Magician. The Magician is a reminder that you have all of the magic that you need inside of you. And if you look in her hair, she's got these 4 plants that represent the 4 elements in the suit. We've got earth, which is like our support and our groundedness. We have a air plant, which is like our ideas and our expression. We have an herb, which represents our fire and our drive and our spice for life. And then we have a water plant, which represents our creativity and our relationships. And we have all of these gifts inside of us, and they show up differently for each person. And sometimes we forget about our own magic. And this is a reminder to connect with the people that you know and love that see you, and you will be reminded again of your magic. If you got 20 or 11, then you actually get 2 cards, because 2 plus 0 equals 2. 1 plus 1 equals 2. So first we're going to talk about these 2 individually, and then we're going to talk about their connecting card, the High Priestess. So first, the Judgment card. The Judgment card is about rebirth. Judgment is this big transformational card. As you can see here, we have these lotus flowers, and there's this phrase that is no mud, no lotus. So in order for us to have these big lotus blooming flowers, we kind of have to go into the depths of the mud to allow these things to bloom. So if you have this card for this year, you have been through it, and you have been in the mud, and you are going to bloom and blossom. We see this, like her arms are up like little butterfly wings. You are going to have a big transformation this year. If you got 11, then your card of the year is Justice. Justice is not only a reminder for, of course, making things fair, but also that our healing is not only reserved for ourselves, that we are a part of a community, and what happens in our community affects us, and what happens to us affects our community. And so it's integral when you are doing healing work to do your own work and to show up for those around you. Now, if you got either of these cards, you also got the High Priestess. The High Priestess is connected to the moon, and she is here to remind us to listen to our intuition. So whether it's through big transformation or the process of connecting to your community, The High Priestess is here to remind you to listen to the wisdom of your body, to take time. She's meditating. Take time to tune into yourself and to appreciate all of the growth and wisdom that your body has to share with you. If you got 21 or 12, then you have 2 cards. Your second card will be number 3, the Empress. So I'm going to go through these 2 individually, and then I'll talk about the card that you will get either way. So the first is the World. The World is the last card in the major arcana. This is the card that represents completion of cycles. And the World is not just about ending something, it's creating space for something new. Our bodies need to know when something ends and to appreciate that cycle, that wisdom that we gained from that time, and really honor it. So if this is the card for you this year, notice things that are wrapping up. As I mentioned in a previous part of this video, a lot of the outer planets are changing signs this year. And so this is just a really great opportunity for you to really acknowledge the lessons that you've learned. If you got 12, then your card of the year is the Hanged One. One of your cards of the year is the Hanged One. And the Hanged One is about being in this in-between space. The in-between of you don't know what's going to happen next, really, this transitional place. And I often think of this one as being stuck in traffic. So it's when you're stuck in traffic, you know that you're stuck in traffic and you could be frustrated about it, or you could decide to listen to music, to call a friend, to do something a little bit different with your time. You're in the in-between, you're stuck in this space. What are you going to do about your experience about it? You get to choose how that shows up for you. And then finally, if you have either of these cards, you also have the Empress. And the Empress is about creation. She is about nurturing. She is one of the cards that I call the inner loving parents of tarot. She is the parent who brings sweetness, who brings nurturing, who brings support. The Emperor, who we'll talk about next, is the other inner loving parent, and that parent gives us structure. And we need both structure and sweetness to feel the balance. And so notice, no matter which one of these you definitely got the Empress, because 1 + 2 = 3. And the Empress, when we have an Empress year, there is a lot of abundance to be had. So in order for you to experience that, you likely either have to acknowledge the completion of a cycle or acknowledge the space in between. And then you will create space for new beginnings. If you got 13 or 4, you either got 1 or 2 cards. Let's start with 13. So 13 is death. Death is not only the ending of something, but is creating space for something new. It acknowledges the cycles of life. We need both creation, sustaining, and release in order to have this full cycle of life. So what are you going to be offering? What are you going to be releasing? What are you going to be grieving this year? If you got death, then you also got the Emperor, or maybe you just got the Emperor. The Emperor is about structure and support. I mentioned in the last little part of this video when I talked about the Empress, I call the Emperor one of the inner loving parents of tarot. This is a card that gives us structure and support. And so when I see this card, I'm reminded, okay, am I doing all the things to make sure that I am getting my needs met, right? Am I going to the dentist? Am I getting my oil changed? Right? It's all kind of the mundane things that happen in our life, but that we need to happen so that we can then focus on the things that we want to focus on. So this year, no matter which one of these you got, you are either going to need to releasing things to create space for new structure, new support, new habits, new patterns, so that you are able to then move forward and do the things that you actually want to do. If you got 14 or 5, this is your section. 14 is Temperance. Temperance is a space of balance. It always comes after the Death card, and the Death is about releasing. And have you ever had that experience where you release something and then you feel this kind of almost peace in this in-between place? Even if you're in a place of sadness or distraught, after the release, after the cry, after the acknowledgement, there's a sense of knowing and a sense of balance, even if it's just for a moment. This year might call in that place in between. If this is your card this year, that means that last year you did have the death card. So this past year you've had to release a lot of things. And now this year you're going to be feeling that in between place. If you got 5, the Hierophant, this is about your teacher. And sometimes the teacher is a person, sometimes the teacher is a thought process, a modality, something that you want to learn about. And sometimes your teacher is your own body and your own wisdom. This year, you are ready to learn something. 5 is about going within. 5 energy is this kind of recalibration. Sometimes it can be a little bit challenging, but it usually gives us enough grit and enough friction to create something new. If you got 15 or 6, then these are your cards for this year. If you got 15, you have the Devil. The Devil is noticing where you are getting stuck in cycles. This card represents addiction, and it could be actual addiction, right? Drugs, alcohol, whatever. But we're all addicted to something. Maybe it's your own thought process. Maybe it's social media. Maybe it's codependency. It doesn't really matter. It's just noticing the parts of yourself that you get stuck in cycles on, naming that shame, naming that discomfort, and that will be the key to break you free. As you can notice, these two cards are very similar because they're kind of two sides of the same coin. The Lovers is not actually about anyone else. This is about you loving every part of yourself. So, is there a part of you that you try to hide, that you try to disguise? That probably part is the Devil. The Lovers tells you to love yourself. The Devil says no, but really, but every single part. So whichever card you got, if you got one or both, this is going to be a year for you to really look inside of yourself, check on your own relationship to your body, to different parts of yourself that you might try to hide, and to embrace all of them. And added bonus, usually when we get the Lovers, even though it's not about someone else, when we do the work to connect with ourselves, we then attract people, whether it's lovers or friends or just community members, that are also doing that similar work, and you will continue to feel more affirmed. If you got 16 or 7, then this is your card or cards of the year. Let's start with the Tower. The Tower is about major life change. The Tower can be a challenging card because it does pretty much pull things away, and it's usually those things that you pull that get pulled away from you, that get destroyed. It creates space for something new. It's usually something that wasn't actually working in the first place, and you may be have been trying to hold it together. If you got the Tower, then you also got the Chariot, or maybe you just got the Chariot. The Chariot is a reminder to come back to your body. In the Bhagavad Gita, there is a phrase, which is the chariot is the body, the horses are the senses, the mind is the reins, and the charioteer, or the driver of the chariot, is your consciousness. When we are not present in our bodies, when we're not conscious in our bodies, then our senses take over and they direct our bodies wherever they want to go. When you are present with yourself, then you are able to drive your attention where you want it to be. And so if you got both of these cards, or even if you just got the one, notice that when things are starting to fall apart, come back to your body, come back to your own values, and notice if that is something that you would like to put more attention on. And then that will help you to guide you through the major changes. If you got 17 or 8, then these are your cards of the year. 17 is the Star. The Star is a reminder that you are supported by the universe. This always comes after a Tower year. So after big change and destruction, you have this sense of peace. Whatever is cleared away actually wasn't meant to be there for you, and this creates something new. And then you not only feel more a sense of peace, you feel more connected to yourself and to your community and to spirituality. If you got Strength, 8 card, this is about discernment of how to use your energy. Are you going to outwardly push yourself? Sometimes you need to. Or are you going to restrain and like put your energy inside of yourself? Only you can decide that. This was the collective card for 2024. We all had to really explore where we wanted to put our effort, and if we want to muscle through something or if we want to kind of let things happen. And it's a challenging card to go through individually and collectively, but you have the support of the star, and you get to trust your body. You get to trust what feels right to you. You get to trust where you put your energy, and that will help you throughout this year. If you got 18 and or 9, then these are your cards of the year. Let's start with 18. First, if the moon is about being in the unknown, the moon energy, there's a shadowness to it, not necessarily in a challenging way, but in a way that we don't necessarily know what the next thing that's going to happen. You're kind of in the dark around something. But here's the thing. The moon itself, I know it's not actually a planet, but from an astrology perspective, when we see it as a planet, it is the fastest moving planet. It stays in the same sign for 2.5 days. And so even if you're in places of the unknown, know that that will change very quickly. And so just trust the process, trust the space of the in-between, this liminal space, and it will give you a little bit of peace and presence as you move into the next phase. And then the Hermit, if you got the Hermit, you are aligned with the collective because this is the collective energy for this year. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, the Hermit is about listening to your own self, about kind of cutting out that outside noise and really pulling your attention within. If you've been really feeling overwhelmed and overstimulated recently, maybe take a couple things off your plate. Maybe you're doing a little bit too much. Maybe really take the time to learn to listen to yourself, have some intentional rest, not just forced rest, right? When we get a little overworked, then we just like have to rest because it's what our body needs from us. But like building that into your life this year, I think will do you a lot of really good. Make sure to follow, like, subscribe, all that stuff to stay up to date on tarot, astrology, yoga, and being with your body. And also make sure to check back in on this video throughout the year to see how your card, your perception of your card has changed and evolved, because honestly, it always does. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you being here. Talk soon.